It is early in the morning. My name is Drew. This is my deep thought for today, actually. Sort of the start of the Unconventional Parent. I suppose the first place we got to start is, if you're going to be a good parent, I'm just going to set you up here like that. If you're going to be a good parent, then you have to have developed or develop good parenting skills. And I mean, that all depends on what good parenting skills are. First off, you have to understand what it is that you want to do. Where you want your kid to go in life, I guess. Everybody's got this sort of base, esoteric idea of what they want for their children. And it's sort of a mass populace, very popular idea of how kids should be and what they should have when they're growing up. I mean, everybody, the parents, the big esotericness is that we want to have it better. We want have our kids have it better than we did. And of course, this perpetuates a whole bunch of sins, I guess you would call them. Because, in the name of trying to raise our kids not the same way we did, again, it's that trying thing, because all we're doing really is generally, because we're not conscious of what we're doing, we're teaching them the same bad habits that we had when we were growing up by preventing, trying to prevent that. We swing so far the opposite direction that it becomes reverse psychology, I guess. Right? You go, oh well, I'm not going to do that to my kids, so you make sure that you don't hit your kid. You put more stringent rules, or however that looks to you, but it ends up producing the exact opposite. It ends up producing just as much the other direction or more the other direction than you are trying to prevent. I mean, the key here is that if you're trying to teach your kid a better way, if you don't know that better way, it's like you have no idea what that is and how to be able to live it yourself, it's not going to work. Right? So it's part of the unconventional parent is you have to work on who you are. As you change and grow, so does your child change and grow, because we are the model that they're after. It's not just a matter of doing different actions. Right? It's living different actions. Okay, living and doing are two different things. One, you can do something all you want, but if you don't believe in it, I'm going to put this in an analogy for a salesperson. I used to sell suits and stuff for a local company, not local, but a company here in Canada. And I worked in what was called a clearance center. And I love selling, and I like selling a product that I can stand behind and stuff like that. So here I am, I'm selling these products. And we all of a sudden became a clearance center. So we got most of our new suits sort of left, and now it was just all old suits. So I'm selling to people, and I'm really happy that I'm selling them, a suit that they were really going to enjoy for $79, at the time. And other places are selling them for $300, $400. So I'm like, yeah, this is fantastic, because, for me the fun is, I had one guy walk in, he wanted this Bellissimo suit, and it was the top of the line at the time, $400 pre-made suit. And, that's nothing now, but back then it was still a lot of money. And, he was like, oh, I love this suit, I'm going to have that. And I said, listen, because I could tell by his coloring, by that this suit would just look awful on it. And I said, listen, I'm going to do something. I'm going to grab this suit, and then I went over and grabbed like an $80 suit. And I said, first off, we're going to put this suit on you. I don't think that it's going to look good, but, you want to try it so that you can see. So he puts it on, and he's like, yeah, you know what? This doesn't suit me at all. And I said, no, I'll put this $79 suit on. And I put that $79 suit on, and the guy looked like $1,000,000. And so that to me was, the definitive. That's selling. It's being able to stand behind your product, know what you're doing, and sell a product that people are going to be happy with. So to me, that was very important. Well, I started selling products, and then the buttons kept flying off, and the hems would fall, and so I'm sitting here selling a product now that I can't trust. I don't like. It's not reliable. It makes me look foolish when I'm sitting there with the customer and he puts the button on, like he goes to button his pants and the button flies out. And so now I'm feeling like I'm selling an inferior product, and so therefore my sales went down because I didn't believe in the product. I didn't have the faith behind the product. And it's the same thing that you're dealing with when you're dealing with teaching your kids stuff. You can do actions, but if you don't believe in the actions, the kids won't believe it because they take their cues from you. Remember, we're raising little lie detectors. What you really don't know is that from the day they are born, they are analyzing everything you do, all your moves. Okay? They are absorbing everything. And because you're their parents, you're the ones they see the most. And so they are going to absorb all of the stuff that you know, all of your ticks and tricks and tells, what they call tells in poker. I'm sure that you've all heard it. And so therefore, they are like incredible human lie detectors. So our first problem is that, you read something in a book, you do something like this. If you're not living it, and you're not believing in it wholeheartedly, your kids can tell. They know that you're full of crap. It's like, it's not just, oh, well, I'm going to give you the best. And again, part of it's, again, we've got this esoteric, overall blanketing thing of, this is how I'm going to raise my kid. I'm going to raise my kid to be better than me. Well, better than me could be almost anything. So there's a lot of stuff in there that, it's you're doing a broad spectrum. You can say, I'm going to put my kid in a little bit faster learning as a child, or, you can have a specific plan. And there's nothing wrong with taking action on something that you believe in, but you have to absolutely wholeheartedly believe that what you are doing is the correct thing. But you have to own it. You have to have run through it, at least to some degree yourself. So I can teach my kids that, going to school is a good thing. But the truth is, I don't believe going to school. I believe going to school is a good thing, but I believe it's arduous, right? I remember getting up as a kid, and I'm like, dragging my ass out of bed, and then my parents, it's like, I don't believe that we should be doing that. So here I am, on the opposite end of the scale, saying, pulling my kid out of bed and saying, hey, I know that you got to go through this, but you are in choice, and at a certain point, my kid is in choice that they can stay in school or not. And it's the difference between going to work and stuff like that. And now there's a lot of parents out there that wouldn't do that. They would go, oh my God, no, school is so important. But again, one of the things that we have to remember, that the importance that we are teaching is only important that we believe, right? It's not, belief is something that generally we're taught. We're taught to believe in certain things. And it's not that we ever really thought about what it is that we were believing in, but we were taught to believe in that. So believing that school is the only way to go, you have to graduate and stuff like that. The truth is they don't have to do anything. There's more difficulties on certain levels without them graduating. And that's a fact. That's something that, sure, kids should know and do. Anyway, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself in the conversation because, we're talking about sort of later when we're going to present kids with that choice and responsibility. First off, we've got to start teaching them fundamentally. And generally, if you're looking to allow your kid to be better than you, or stuff, before you have a kid, try and list all the things. First, the reasons that you're going to have a kid. It's like, first know what your motivations are and be 100% honest. I want a kid because it feels good in my heart to hold a little child around. You know, most of the times we don't even know our motivations to have one, right? We have this idea that, it's going to make us better, or it feels good. It's like women they go, oh, this little baby, and the little baby's cuddling up to their chest, no. They have a biological imperative, I guess, on some levels, but in talking to a number of moms and people that have raised kids, and I asked them, I said, like, what, your kids, like my Aunt Marta, who's a wonderful lady, I chatted with her one time, and I said, I got a theory, Marta, did you have, when was the happiest times in your life? And she said, oh, when my kids were little kids, and they were growing up, and I said, I noticed the spacing that you had in your kids, right? Did you have your kids that length of time? It's sort of when they got to be that age where they were sort of talking back, 2 to 3 years old, that you said, oh, I want to have another kid. I said, was it because the kids themselves were satisfied some of that unconditional loving that you longed for in your life? I mean, you didn't have it in your relationship, or at least I perceive you didn't. At some point you weren't sleeping with your husband regularly, and he wasn't giving you that kind of affection. That, having a kid, being able to hold it up to your chest and rock it back and forth, and not only receive an unconditionalness around it, but to give it, because we have such a tough time with people being able to receive the love that we have to give, and that generosity, and being able to give it. Okay, and there's another lesson in there for us, is that we learn at an early age that love is conditional to what it is that we give or what it is that we receive, or are willing to on both sides. Which is probably another thing that you should want to learn yourself in order to be able to teach your child. But anyway, and Marta said, oh my goodness. She said, I think that you're right. I think that's exactly what I did. I was never happier as when my kids were little, and they couldn't reflect back stuff that I didn't like about myself. Because, when kids, they go terrible 2s, 3, a lot of the times that's when we really shut down as people, because our child is throwing all of our inadequacies back at us, and we react exactly like any child would, in defensive. And the problem with that is, of course, we're bigger, and of course this is going to affect the child, because if you are not able to be patient and loving, how on earth, if you don't know what patient and loving is, how on earth are you going to be able to create the patience and understanding in your child that you say that you want them to have? Because you don't own it. And you're their template, whether you realize it or not, because you are around the most, because you are the guys that are in intimate contact with your children the most. You are their template. And whether you recognize it consciously or you don't, you are going to give them all the stuff your parents gave you unless you've relearned it somehow. Right? Unless you, yeah, sure, we are a little bit different from our parents. We have our own personalities. We've developed some stuff that we truly believe in, that we are, and maybe learn some lessons as we're going that help us through that. But, quite literally, it is all of the stuff that we learn, all of the subconscious reactions and actions that we do that are going to be taught to our children. And so, like I said, your first part of your plan is, if you're going to have kids, what do you need to do for you to retrain the things that you don't like about yourself, that you are frustrated with? take all of the things that you say that you want to teach your kids. Like, I want to teach my kids patience, and I want to teach my kids to be self-confident in everywhere in their lives, emotionally as well as, job-wise and all that stuff. I want to be able to teach them to be kind, to help other people, all of that stuff. You make a list of all of the things that you would like to help your child to do, and then say, okay, how can I learn these? What is it that I need to do in order to be able to do this? So this book is quite literally showing the results of actions that we take with our children and what we learned as adults. And this is about us. This is really not about kids. This is about us. It's about taking a look at our lives as grown people. We look back to when we were that age. What were we thinking? What were we doing? Okay? And, our observances of, our friends' kids, what were they thinking? What were they doing? How do we see those react in comparison to what their adults are doing? Okay? Part of this whole process is to stop reacting and start responding. And the difference between reaction and response, reaction is a conditioned action that is taken when a stimulus is given. So a reaction would be, you remember how they trained the dog to salivate with the bell. Okay, that's a Jungian thing where Jung took a dog, and every time he fed it, he would ring a bell. And so next time, after a certain amount of time, he rang the bell and the dog would salivate thinking that there was food, right? Even though there was no food. So it's a conditioned response. So our reactions to something, whether it be anger, frustration, fear, is a reaction that we learned as children, or defense mechanism, or whatever. It's a reaction to a stimulus. And the difference between responding and reacting is a taught thing. Responding is something that you choose, or something that you are in choice about. You take a look at a situation and you say, who do I want to be in respect to this? And choose your response, right? A lot of the times when we've become patient, or when we've done certain things, our response is more loving, caring, patient, and understanding, so we let go of a lot of the fear and anger about all of this stuff. Anyway, that's just sort of the start. Welcome to the morning.